Darfur. What is Darfur? Darfur is the western region of Sudan, which is in Africa. Darfur is not a country in itself. The region was home to about 6 million people and is about the size of France. The people that live in Darfur are racially mixed tribes of settled peasants who identify themselves as African and nomadic herders. They also identify themselves as Arab. The majority of people in both groups are Muslim. What is happening in Darfur, you might ask? The situation is very complicated, but it can be summarized in brief. Government neglect has left the people throughout Sudan poor and voiceless. In February 2003, the non-Arab ethnic groups of Darfur launched an uprising against the Khartoum government. The government responded by implementing their campaign of genocide, enlisting the help of Arab militia in Darfur called the Janjaweed. The dispute is racial, not religious. Muslim Arab Sudanese are killing Muslim black Sudanese. Who are the Janjaweed? The Janjaweed are the armed militia supported by the Sudanese government to carry out the genocide alongside the independent of the Sudanese army. How is the violence being conducted, you might ask? A typical situation is this. The Janjaweed will enter a village on horseback or camelback. They then set about causing as much mayhem and terror as possible, destroying houses and buildings, shooting the men, gang raping the women and children, and shooting anyone who tries to escape. The village is generally destroyed, families are dispersed and separated, most are killed. Those who manage to escape then attempt the long journey to an IDP, or internally displaced persons camp. Essentially, however, there are now very few functioning villages left in Darfur region, as most of them have been systematically attacked in this way. Google Earth and the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum have collaborated to let you see the destruction for yourself. You can zoom in on destroyed villages, houses, and schools and see exactly the damage that is being done. You can visit the link in my description. Who has been affected so far? Up to 400,000 people have died due as a result of direct attacks and conflict-induced malnutrition and disease. The vast majority of these have been women and children and civilians. More than 3 million people have been displaced and are living in IDP camps. More than 350,000 people are deprived of humanitarian support due to the threat of attack faced by aid workers. Thousands starve each month due to the Sudanese government impending humanitarian aid efforts. A further 4 million Darfur residents and dependent on limited international humanitarian assistance. The violence is now spilling onto neighboring eastern Chad. Here is 11 facts about Darfur. 1. Over the past 5 years, over 400,000 Darfurian citizens have been killed. 2. 150,000 people have died directly from acts of violence in Darfur. 3. 90% of the villages of Darfur targeted ethnic groups have been destroyed. 4. 97% of these killings have been against innocent civilians and executed by militia groups instructed by the government. 5. 80 infants die each day in Darfur due to a lack of proper nutrition. 6. 80% of those displaced are women and young girls who are consistently the victims of sexual violence and abducted into sexual slavery. 7. Humanitarian refugee camps in Chad and Sudan are overcrowded, disease-infested, and prone to attacks. 8. 2.8 million people have been displaced within Sudan. 9. 250,000 people have fled Darfur, mainly to Chad, where they are facing further violence. 10. Despite an abundance of oil and other natural resources, the vast majority of Sudan people live in poverty, and its government has been described as the most representative regime in the world. 11. On September 9, 2004, the United States Secretary of State Colin Powell said the Darfur conflict was genocide and called it the worst humanitarian crisis of the 21st century. This is the first time the United States has ever declared genocide while genocide was still happening. There are many different ways that you can help. One way you can help Darfur is by sending them gifts and help through organizations like Amnesty International. I would suggest all of you who are listening to me to join Amnesty International. This is the end of this message.